Uh, Good morning, everybody. Today, this endocrine symposium, our first speaker, Dr. Suresh Damodaran, and he's MBBS, MRCP, UK, CCST in medicine from the London, and he's endocrinologist from the London, and consultant diabetes and endocrinology from the Sri Ramakrishna Hospital, Coimbatore. He's honorary consultant in the Delhi Ford Hospital, uh, Plymouth. He has done basic and postgraduate specialty and super specialty training in the England. His special interests are complication type diabetes, diabetic foot diseases, gestational diabetes, insulin pumps, pituitary, thyroid, infertility, endocrine discussion diseases, and endocrine hormone related issue relating to the sexual function. He conducts annual international and national conference, DCON and Paradicon every year. He was awarded the Donald D. Ed Biller International Scholar Award, presented by the International Diabetes Center, Minneapolis and Minnesota from the USA. Currently an elected executive counseling member of Endocrine Society of India. Currently the vice president of Tamil Nadu Endocrine Society. He was awarded by the International Symposium on Diabetes with India, Academy of Diabetes Award for the Outstanding Contribution to Diabetic Education Award on January 2019 from Mumbai. He has presented and published many abstracts and papers in international and national meetings and journals. He is in the mainly advanced glycated end products and arterial stiffness in type 2 diabetes. So please welcome, sir, Dr. Suresh
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. This is up to you.
Yes, sir. Can you see me properly?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the wonderful opportunity, Dr. Bansi, and thanks for the elaborate introduction. Just next 20 minutes or so, I want to run through a concept of how diabetes is affecting the reproductive function. So if I can, if you look at it, the main thing is sexuality is an important aspect, and normal sexual function, however, it's mainly the interaction, multiple components. There are quite a lot of psychological factors, but however, the chronic medical conditions like diabetes have got an important role to play. So if you look at the type 1 diabetes, almost like 40% of women is affected. The reproductive period is mainly between puberty to menopause. And we are talking about early onset of type 2 diabetes in a woman of childbearing age. So in a male, it can affect causing spermatogenesis affection. So if you look at the fecundity, what it is it's a natural potential to reproductive and give birth to a life offspring. But fertility, on the other hand, it is a reproductive fitness in terms of offspring born to the per couple. So again, as I said, it's from menarche to menopause, but it is diabetes can affect. That's a late menarche to early menopause. It can affect from anything from that. I'll come through that in a detailed way. It's mainly the high infertility rates is affecting the couples. This is the basic mechanism. If you look at a type 1 diabetes, in the other side, insulin deficiencies, the leptin will be less, kisspeptin, which is has in the hypothalamus, GnRH, and then LHFSH secretion will be less. So this side, if you look at the hyperglycemia aspect, that will come to abnormal ovarian folliculogenesis and follicular apoptosis and early menopause. It comes to almost like a PCOS morphology. So what is the complex interaction of type 2 diabetes and reproductive function? If you look at type 2 causes hyperinsulinemia, again, as I mentioned, abnormal folliculogenesis, hyperandrogenism, and it goes into the PCOS area. This side, it comes to more of insulin resistance and glucotoxicity in the other side, which will again lead to the same complications as I mentioned. So men, how do you approach? I will give an endocrine flavor to it. If you look at the 41, this is a case scenario. 41-year-old type 2, A1C not under control, hypertensive, diabetic dyslipidemia, BMI is 31, statin, patient is on metformin and Lantus and antidepressant. So before you want to ask quite a few details, but he's saying that hesitantly, normally as in our clinic, people don't talk about the sex, but he was just in saying that sexually is not active. But if you, the further questioning that he's got a ED, which is for past 6 months, and then after his pharmacotherapy workup, he's given a prescription of PDE5 inhibitors. Whether this is appropriate, I want to ask you whether any other possible etiology. These are the questions that I want to ask you. But I think if you look at the mechanism very quickly, the testosterone acts, it's normally bound to albumin and sex hormone binding globulin. It's in the blood from the testosterone 5-alpha reductase, and it acts in the way of dihydroxy testosterone, which is active form. Um, so uh, so androgen deficiency is the main thing, and testosterone is androgen, and it causes diabetes causes androgen deficiency, causes low testosterone level. I'll come to the mechanism. This is the mechanism. So again, insulin resistance. You got in type 2 diabetes that goes to inflammation. And main thing I want you to remember this a slide out of my talk, if I can, then there will be leptin production affected, and LHFSH secretion release will be causing, it causes hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism. So the pituitary will be affected because of the fat content, the leptin goes up, and then spermatogenesis is affected, hypogonadism. So it is like a hypogonadism and insulin resistance, both is like hand in hand. Hypogonadal patient will be insulin resistant patient can become hypogonadal. So this is the slide I want you to take in terms of diabetes and reproductive function. So this same chap, we were asking the question whether any other laboratory test and everything. So he is had a testosterone level done, and the testosterone level is 143. But he was given, as you know, PDE5 inhibitors like tadalafil. But on the other hand, he needed something called testosterone, which is the hormone which will stabilize his condition, which is the main etiology. So type 2 causing hypogonadism treated with sustanon. Again, so 3 months later, his symptoms completely got better, and he is much better because his etiology is being treated. So this is one of the learning points from the talk from today's talk. So basically, diabetes can lead to hypogonadism that will lead to other complications. So you have to identify, diagnose properly to go into treating properly. But on the other hand, so controlling diabetes and weight management is also very, very important. And testosterone replacement you can do according to the blood results and also the symptoms what he's got. So mainly men-wise, I mentioned for reproductive function, ED is one thing which discussed in many forums. I'll touch base on that, and I've touched base on androgen deficiency, about the mechanism, and but a low libido and balanitis. Balanitis is one of the commonest thing patients present with to urologist and other department, and they just come to you, get referred with HbA1c of 12 or 13, something like that. So ED, very briefly, it is one of the commonest cause, and it progressive. More than 50% of diabetics of men will be affected in 10 years. It's very, very common because of the vascular involvement, and it produces a return of erectile dysfunction. So it is like a microangiopathy. You might be knowing it, and it's a good predictor is just checking the retinopathy and also the kidneys. So age duration is all very, very important in diabetes to check for ED, and normally around 40 to 70 years. For men younger than 40 years, you have to think about other causes as well. And alcohol and antihypertensive medicines are all can contribute to it. So this is the picture that shows about the penis and flaccid penis and erect penis. So this is the mechanism how it works. Hypertension, dyslipidemia, and diabetes is the main thing, and that will lead to endothelial dysfunction, impaired vasodilatation, and arterial stenosis. Therefore, ED occurs. So, by reducing penile flow, how I think the ED has got oral therapy, and it's quite effective. If you look at the studies, almost 268 patients, erections were improved in 57% of patients with the PDE5 inhibitors. So PDE5 inhibitors are great drugs of past 20 years or so. And other treatments are available as a vacuum device or intraurethral prostatin and intracavernosus injections are all available. So these are the things. I won't go into the details, but it is something that you should offer your patients when the drugs are not working. So vacuum devices, on the other hand, few centers does it, and people will be very grateful to you. It is a time tedious process, but still it's worth it because they will boost their confidence. So the third aspect is the low libido in men. Low libido is it's like lack of sexual interest. It's mainly possibly caused by low testosterone, and psychological is one of the things. So if you improve the blood sugar, there are cases that you can improve the libido as well. Balanitis, as I mentioned, is very, very common. After urinating, some urine get trapped in the foreskin and you get really itching all over. Antibiotics and antifungal drugs will be very, very helpful. On washing the penis and inside the foreskin with the soap and warm water might help. So, especially for patients or our patients on SGLT2 inhibitors, we should advise them to do it. I'm sure that is one of the main advices that we give along with the water intake for SGLT2 inhibitors. So, I've just touched base on male. Now, just for a woman, because this is almost like a neglected area. So reproductive function as a whole, it's a broader topic. So if you look at it, early conception-wise, delayed puberty, infertility, and PCOS, and menstrual disturbance, and during pregnancy, GDM, and adverse pregnancy outcome, which is very, very distressing. And then the late complications is early menopause. So for a woman, it can go through from menarche to menopause in a big way. So AFUD classification disorders in women, it can cause hypoactive sexual desire disorder, sexual aversion disorder, orgasmic disorder, and sexual pain disorders, and dyspareunia and vaginismus, obviously, because of less of secretion. Other sexual pain disorders, it all happens. And the mechanisms behind it is mostly autonomic neuropathy, and hypoglycemia can happen in a type 1 diabetic, and low sexual drive and dyspareunia. But the autonomic neuropathy wise, it's a common complication of type 2 diabetes. And what we do is the gustatory sweating, we check for the postural hypotension, ED in a men. But for women, I think it can lead to a poor bladder control and poor vaginal lubrication. So that ends up in really a bad dyspareunia, and poor bladder control affects the nerves. And the woman, normally the treatment is just advise the woman to have a urination before and after the intercourse. But it's well said and done, but it is very, very challenging when the diabetes control is very poor and autonomic dysfunction happens to a woman, and that can affect them very, very much psychologically. So again, as I mentioned, poor vaginal lubrication is one of the main things. If neuropathy affects the nerve fiber that stimulate the genitalia, so that arousal may not occur for making intercourse. It causes very, very painful dyspareunia. The only way to do is KY jelly. You can offer a local anesthetic jelly or a lubrication jelly, and that can be possible. The second condition is the low sexual drive for a woman. Because of psychological factors, endogenous depression is present in type 2 diabetics. The medicines that can affect low sex drive, especially the tranquilizers and antidepressant and high blood pressure ones, beta blockers can affect. So we need to discuss with the patient, and poor sleep also can affect the sexual drive as well. So we spoke about dyspareunia, and superficial pain and deeper pain, both are possible, but this could be overcome by lubrication. Again, for a menstrual dysfunction wise, type 1, type 2, if you classify it, 20 to 80% prevalent. Type 2, almost they're all acanthosis, pumpy, and everything. So they get into a real trouble with oligomenorrhea, and also endometrial thickening also happens with type 2 diabetics. But I think for a type 1 diabetic, the important point is if A1C increases, the menstrual cycle gets slightly prolonged. And they also get catamenial when the periods were there, the blood sugar can go all around the place. So that can happen with the type 1 diabetes as well. So poor glycemic control, we need to control it properly. Pre-insulin era, it was not happening. There was quite a lot of complication happened, but we had a wonderful discussion earlier with after the new modern insulins and everything, it should be taken care. and blood sugar control should be the mainstay of treatment. So PCOS wise, I very quickly touch base on that. As I showed you in the second or third of my slide, how PCOS happen. It can affect both fertility and fecundity. 1 in 3 patients have it. It is like I normally say to the patients, it's like a pre-diabetic state, so be careful about it. So if they come for a PCOS checkup, I normally say that. And diagnosis is ovulatory hyperandrogenism and PCOS on ultrasound that keeps on changing. The recent guidelines is out. So PCOS, again, as I showed you earlier, this is like another cartoon which explains how the anovulatory periods happens. The pituitary gets LHFSH secretion is affected. Therefore, the whole lot of signaling goes into the ovary. Instead of estrogen, more of androgen is produced. So again, the management is quite complicated. Metformin and lifestyle is going to be the key. Along with that, letrozole, clomiphene, and gonadotropins all can be given. And gynec team has got multiple drilling and other few other things that can be part of a management for PCOS. This is a very important thing that get neglected. Hypoglycemia can affect sexual function because it uses up large of amount of energy. I think when they do an intercourse, the whole joke being saying that it is like running about 4 minutes a mile when you perform sex. So, but women should also be aware of hypo during the sex, and they can get the lack of concentration. So this is a very important thing which gets almost neglected. So how do you manage it? I'm sure you all aware of how to manage a hypo, but tight control, tight BP control, stop antidepressant, lose weight. But I think gynecologists as a team, if you work on that, women's sexual function will improve better, in a better way. So make an effort to control the blood pressure and overweight. Commit to this is what you advise to patients: commit to diabetes care regime, and vaginal dryness is a problem. Make use of lubricants and reduce likely of incontinence. So if you advise all this, and hopefully they should follow, and then it will be very easy for the this thing. So I have in the last 20 minutes or so, what I've done is initially, it is a huge topic by itself for diabetes and reproductive issues. For a male, how it affects, it is mainly the erectile dysfunction, which is the commonest thing, which is the vascular phenomenon, atherosclerosis, microvascular disease, and then end up in ED. Very good treatments are available with oral PDE5 inhibitors. And then you can go into vacuum devices and other things, penile implants and other things, if oral treatment is not working. And second thing, very, very importantly, I mentioned a concept of fat cells increasing leptin, and therefore the gonadotropin secretions are affected, and then that will lead to less androgen production and causes androgen deficiency. So it causes diabetes, causes hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism, and therefore the testosterone production is less, and that is one of the main other reproductive issues in a male. And then balanitis and a few other things which comes in a routine practice that we should be taken into account. So I covered that. And when it comes to female, it can be from anywhere to menopause to anywhere from menarche to menopause, anywhere it can be affected. And in female, it gets normally neglected, but poor diabetes control is one of the main reasons. So if we control that, and hopefully that thing should improve. Because of vaginal dryness, they get into a lot of trouble with dyspareunia and loss of interest and other things. And I've also touched based upon hypoglycemia. So these are the very important issues that we should address. Improvement of diabetes is going to be the key. Pregnancy, GDM is a whole talk of its own, but the risk factors controlling is very, very important. But as I say in all the meetings, I think lifestyle is going to be the key, even for the reproductive issues. It is going to be the key that will change the whole lot of vasculature and also hormones that will improve. But people pretend and they don't ask for it. But I think we should ask for sexual history as an important part of our history taking. But I think patient also can, sometimes they don't cooperate and then they will do in their own way. With that, I stop and ready to take any further questions.